dear listener, you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. I'm Chris, and as ever, I'm joined by my good friend Clem.
Hi, everybody.
And we're honoured to be joined by competition winner, MUP, sort of hanger-on, lackey, I'd say, friend of the pod, Martin. Martin, how are you, kind sir?
Hello. Nice to see you guys, and thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. So, dear listener, why are we here making this MUP short? Well, for the first time, actually, we're making a little episode that, shockingly, isn't about a Mantic game. Haha, that's right, dear listener. We must be talking about Gates of Antares. Actually, we're not. Or is it 40? What is it? Age of Sigmar 4th edition?
Yeah, this Age of Sigmar that just dropped, right? So that's what we have to talk about. Or what about something even
here, right?
Yeah, something better like a 10 mil game,
Surely you haven't got me on to talk about a 10 mil game, Clem. Surely
Maybe
not.
we better should, right?
So let's be absolutely clear before we go completely off topic. So we're making a little MUP short. This might be a sort of semi-regular thing. Maybe every couple of months we put out an episode. So this is to talk about a game called Argatoria, and I'm pretty sure I've pronounced that correctly. Albeit, dear listener, I suspect we're going to pronounce it differently throughout the pod. So keep an eye on that. One thing before we start. So the game is made by Spellcrow, which is a Polish company who are listed in the UK. If you go to their store, there is a discount code for MUP listeners, which is AR7, and that gives you a massive 20% off. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And the price is already fantastic, to be quite honest, dear listener. So,
this is Ronnie Renton, and you are listening to the Mantic Universe podcast.
Clem, I think we've introduced ourselves many times on MUP. So should we hand over to Martin to just say, hey, Martin, who the heck are you?
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I'm Martin. Hello. I'm from Berlin, Germany. And yeah, I'm in my 40s. And what you guys call maybe a hobby veteran. So a long time tabletop gamer since the 90s, I think. Started with obvious Games Workshop systems and the like, and yeah, played through a bunch of those games and tried other things after it. And now I'm more into indie games and other stuff, and stumbled upon Argatoria from Spellcrow.
Tell us about the games you have not tried that will be faster. Because you're kind of like me, I think. You always I like the new stuff and are curious about what's coming up in the tabletop hobby and look into all of the new games that come up. So yes, I guess that's one defining feature, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, you're right. And I mean, maybe we can call ourselves hobby butterflies, as we always do, and reach out for new systems, cool stuff, and try new things, which are cool.
And Martin, you're also based in Berlin, obviously. And what got me interested in this game is, well, it was just you posting on Facebook. And I know, obviously, from the fact you play Mantic Games, you're a cool guy who likes fun games. So I saw some of the photos and some of the things you were linking. I thought, oh, that does look really cool. The models look great. It does just look like fun. So it was very much Martin's interest that got me interested in the 10 mil game, Clem.
I mean, I've tried. I've done all the prep work, and then Martin came and did the last. When you try to open a tough jar.
Out of spite. Yeah, that'll be it, Clem. Exactly.
I'm like, okay, I'm done trying to crack this nut open. Put it back on the shelf, and then Martin comes and boop, just open it.
There you go, 10 mil game. Martin.
And I'm totally not sorry for opening that box of Pandora, so you are fine.
And it was actually, I mean, to be honest, funnily enough, I was eyeing up the models a couple of weeks ago because the army boxes are such good value. I think they're in pounds. I think they're about £65 for. I don't know exactly what you get in terms of points, but it's a lot of models for £65. And so I was eyeing that up. And then to celebrate the fact they had the rules in English, Polish, and German, they did a crazy discount, which was, I think it was something like if you buy 2 army boxes, you get a third one for free, right? And it's already a really good price. So, of course, what do? I get 6 army boxes.
This is Max McDougall saying, so much universe, so little time.
As one should.
It's perfect.
It's just disappointing I didn't get 9. That's the thing. So super. So we know it's a 10 mil game. Let's talk a little bit about Spellcrow, the company themselves. We've just got some quick notes to go through. So again, it's an indie company, and I think that's a big part of why we want to talk about them on the pod, to give them a bit of exposure, because there's probably never been as many people playing games as there are today, but it feels like such an uphill battle. And I follow loads of games like, for example, Bot War out of Australia, that are super cool games with lovely models, but there's only so much time in the day that, although I've got some Bot War models, I literally don't have time to play. It's just not going to happen. So, I think it's so super competitive at the moment. We just want to make people aware that there is this super, super cool game from this, Polish indie company. And we just think this is cool. So, so the company, so it's Polish, it's based in Warsaw, but it's actually registered in England. Apparently they were doing early metal models and figurines for souvenirs rather than for games, sort of religious stuff. They created their universe called Umbra Turis, which is that's the first thing they did. That's a 28 mil skirmish game, and that means Dark Towers in Latin. They've done if you go on their websites, they've still got sort of bits and pieces you can play with other games, little conversion bits and that kind of thing.
One thing that is not in the notes, but I think quite interesting in this day and age, is, if I'm not mistaken, all of the sculpting is done manually, meaning they use green stuff and masters, and they add onto stuff that they've sculpted already. And it does give a special flair a bit to the models, like it's not digital sculpted, and it definitely comes with a different style, which I think is lovely. I love 3D printed stuff, don't get me wrong, but for me, one interesting part of the system and those miniatures is they're great quality and they're kind of their own thing. Like, it's not like yet another clone of something that we already know. They definitely have something different.
To me, Clem, it's got this weird, somehow it's the best of both worlds. It feels somehow old school and fresh at the same time, which is really cool, and the models, they're beautifully painted on the website. I haven't actually got my models yet, but they do look super, super cool. And the theme is very kind of, it says in the rule book, the guy said one of his main inspirations was He-Man, and I totally get that. He-Man, the barbarians, the monsters, I totally get that. But also, of course, things like Conan. It's a little bit more kind of comic book than Dark Conan, but it's super, super cool. It's full of, muscly men, muscly Amazonian ladies fighting, sort of lizard men and that kind of thing. It's just super, super cool, and they're full of character. Super.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also haven't reached, because I also bought a few army boxes, obviously, but some time ago I already bought some of the models, because I'm lucky enough to have the range available in my local gaming store here in Berlin, and so I bought some 10 mil models just to check them out and see how they are, and maybe use them for Kings of War. And I was actually quite impressed. Like, they are really good quality, because some of the handmade stuff I'm not a big fan of, because it's a bit dated, I would say. But in their case, they've done a really nice job. And as you said, Chris, it's kind of like old school but modern. Like it's a hard way to describe it, but really, really nice stuff. So yeah, and I actually bought. Yeah, no,
sorry, buddy. Yeah, for 10. Sorry to interrupt you, buddy. For 10 mil as well, I think it's very hard to have kind of dynamic poses, and I somehow feel like there's a lot more kind of movement to them than usual 10 mil models. Sorry, Clem, I'll pass over to you.
No, that's right. They are. What I like is they really have their own identity, and it's a well-made universe in a way. And for me, it's the perfect snack activity. It's like, I'm not ditching all Mantic Games or like abandoning 10 mil Kings of War to go play this game instead, where it's more, this brings something different to the table, and I enjoy the few times that I will play it, and I will enjoy painting relatively different miniatures, like different styles of miniatures, and it's a good palate cleanser, like a good snack for the summer in between two main armies for Firefight or for Kings of War or something like this. It's not a big investment, and like €2 you get the rule book as a PDF, and then you get Battlescribe files to build your lists, and that's it. You're ready to go, right? Buy an army box, maybe a blister of heroes, And that's it. You can already play some games, and that's what I like also about it. But anyway, I'm jumping ahead maybe a little bit.
Oh, buddy, that's the MUP style. Yeah, and that's worth repeating. It's €2 for all of the rules, for all of the factions for the game. That's all you need. €2. It's crazy. What can you get these days for €2?
Not much. Not even a coffee anymore, right?
Oh, a nice coffee is what, like €7?
I don't drink those, so I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, come on, Clem. You live in Berlin. €7 is cheap. Super. Right, let's move on quickly before we get into a weird discussion that is not related to the game. So,
Right.
yeah. So
maybe Martin, you can tell us more about Argatoria itself, like the Argatoria, the universe and the lore and all the stuff, right?
Yeah, sure.
Let's-
I can.
Clem,
What's your
let's
what's your
go step
demo
at a time,
demo
Clem, step at a
day
time.
pitch?
So yeah, as you guys said, it's like the old school vibes, a bit of old hammer, I would say. The models also have green base rims, which is quite funny and unique also. And as Chris already said, like you have those Conan vibes and barbarian going on and stuff. And yeah, funnily enough, Argatoria describes a land within the world itself. So it's where different kinds of barbarian tribes lives, and also some Reptilians going on. So there are different factions, different tribes, which are quite unique, and also their playstyle is different to each other. So you have like the more Conan-like barbarians called the Vandal tribe, which are bathed in blood and have some tattoos and stuff, and very muscular, and have blood priestesses and cavalry and such kind of things. And they are quite capable of doing melee fighting. And they are distrusting the gods, because in Argatoria it's also a lot going on with the gods. So some tribes are praying to the gods, and you can also do it within the game. So you can try it and see if you are lucky and if the gods are listening to you. So that's quite cool, like a mechanic to have. And yeah, so the land is divided like in different zones, I would say, where the different tribes live. In the south, there are the Reptilians, there are the Zorgax. That's a quite mysterious tribe, full of secrets, living underneath the earth. And there are also the Aroks, and they are quite powerful, but more aggressive, so to say. And yeah, then you have obviously a huge evil force up in the north. Everything bad is coming from the north. I get some vibes out of it. So yeah, and there's a faction called Sheol-Morg. Don't know if it's pronounced correctly, but yeah, that's the name. And they are, I would say, like old mortal chaos from Warhammer Fantasy battles, I would say. So it's a mixture of evil humans, beastmen, and also undead. And it also shows their game style a lot.
Sorry, Martin, I'll jump in. I think we need to break this up into chunks a little bit more. So, yeah, so the gods, and I very quickly read the lore today, believe it or not, dear listener. Now, am I right in thinking the gods probably aren't gods? They're probably sort of alien beings?
That's a very good question. I've read the lore myself, but to be honest, I don't know. I mean, there's a blog which you can go through from the Spellcrow website, which goes more into the Umbrator's universe itself, where Argatoria is set within that world. That's funny because you have the Umbrator's skirmish game, and it's already on the map. On the back of the book, there's a huge world map you can see. It's called also Morton in the language of the inhabitants there. And on the west, there's Argatoria, quite huge, a vast land. But yeah, on that blog, you can read about such kind of gods. But I don't know if they are some kind of aliens or stuff. It seems a bit
I
weird
suspect.
to me.
Yeah, it was sort of hinted at, because it was this. There's a sentence in there that's saying, well, someone's god is just someone else's, higher being from space. There is something in there, but so let's sum up really quickly. So I think in this game,
you connected to Gates of Antares, Chris, right? It's one planet in the universe.
So anyway, back to Antares. Yes. So just to sum it up quickly, I think the good guys in this game would probably be more like the bad guys in another game, right? They all love to fight. They're all crazy barbarian types. So there's to start things off. Then there's 2 human barbarian factions. So maybe we'll go into a little bit more detail in a little while. There's also 2 kind of lizard men-ish factions, which, as Martin said, they live in the south. And then in the north, there's this big evil. There's sort of evil human tribesmen, a bit like the Varangur obviously in Kings of War, but they've also got some monsters and that kind of thing. So to start off, Martin mentioned it earlier that orcs are coming. So there's obviously going to be more factions. There's also a secret faction, which may or may not be dwarves. That's just me speculating wildly. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. No one's smiling on the call, dear listener. You'll be sure. I can assure you. So super. So we've talked about the models. So let's talk a little bit about the rules of the game and how it's, because I get this feeling, Clem, it's a bit like with Antares and Firefight. They're both great games, which are just different enough. As you said, Clem, with sort of small scale Kings of War, you've got room in your heart for 2, albeit you may not play them every single week, but there's enough differences between the 2 games to make it legitimate that you're interested to play both, right? So maybe we can talk about the rules a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I haven't reread them recently because I bought the PDF of rules, I think, when it came out, and that's a while ago already, like a few months. Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can remember it was a long time ago that I bought the rules to have a read through, and I really liked them. Then I put it aside and never actually got models for it because life. And so now I've forgotten about it.
And now we're making a podcast.
Right. What I remember, who reads the rules again before doing the podcast, right?
Clem, shall I have a crack at it and then Martin correct me and fill things in, right? So first of all, centimeters rather than inches. That'll put some people off, but honestly, if that puts you off playing a game, what the heck is wrong with you? That's weird. For movement, you have a move value and you add a d6 dice roll to it. So there's a bit of uncertainty. And what's quite cool is you place a dice, an activation dice, basically, by each of your units. And then there's an element of randomness. You roll a dice and you look at your heroes, your leader's value, his sort of leadership value or something. And that tells you on your turn how many units you can activate, which is really interesting. So you're going to have to win the game based on how many units you can activate this turn. So you're going to constantly be having to adjust your plan as your opponent will have to. So one turn you might get super unlucky and you might only be able to activate 2 units. The next turn you might get to activate 6 units. And of course, that's going to make for really, really interesting strategies. So as you activate units, you remove their sort of their dice to show who's activated that cycle. I think they use the word cycle instead of round. So yeah, to be honest, it just sounds interesting. One thing, Martin, I noticed, and I wanted some clarification on, was when you actually pivot a unit, you're supposed to put a dice in front of that, a 12mm dice in front of that unit, sort of at the leader point. And I was just wondering, reading the rules today, I couldn't quite figure out what the point of that was. Is that just to make sure you pivot around the center of the unit, or what's the reason for that?
This is Andy from Mantic Games, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. So much universe, so little time.
I'm Scott, aka Palette of War. Welcome to Mantic Universe podcast, and check out my YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. That's the reason for it. So before you remove the action die to show that a unit is activated, you can pivot around that die up to 90 degrees, and then you can move the unit with the mentioned movement value plus 1d6, and then you remove the action die.
And then I think it's got pretty logical list building rules. So I think for small games, so something like up to 1,000 points, I think you've got to have a minimum of 4 basic units, and I think 4 heroes, and then you can unlock various different kinds of fancier units. There's elite and there's giants and things like that. I think there's elite and then there's rare or something. I think there's roughly 4 tiers of units that you can unlock, whether it's your cheap chaff stuff going all the way up to giants. So I think it's the way the list building works, I think, is going to lead to people bringing armies and not bringing skew lists or anything weird. It's going to be a rank and flank game, right, Martin?
Yeah, exactly. So you aren't allowed to just bring in all the big guys only. So you have like basic unit type like normal infantry and stuff, you have to field a minimum of also. And that's like a bit with Kings of War, where you unlock more other unit types like rare, elite, or like unique units, which are quite rare, so to say.
And we've kind of gone over the lore quite quickly. Maybe we can just touch on that a little bit more because I think it's really cool. So there's a big baddie in the north called the Shoal Morg. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's what we're going with. And ages ago, everyone united and defeated them, right? And they've come back, except at the moment, everyone's fighting amongst each other, and they're not particularly, they'll fight the bad guys as well, but they're busy. They're loving fighting everybody else at the same time, right? So we've got I'm going to struggle to pronounce this. The Dirandis, I'm going to say, and the Gelador are the two tribes that are out of humans. And then the reptilians are in the south, as we said. They've got, huge cities and temples and things. And they're mysterious, apparently. There's the Aurochs and the Sorgax. I think the Sorgax, rather. I think they're the kind of more watery themed ones. They're kind of like, frogmen and stuff. So obviously I've gone for that one, of course, Clem. They're the ones most similar to the Trident Realms. And there's, evil humans, obviously. Clem.
Just to interrupt, but one thing that I found pretty cool when I started looking into it is they started with 4 factions with 2 sets of miniatures, basically. So there are humans, like barbarians. And if you paint them blue, they're the cool kinds. And if you paint them red, they're the warm kind. And similar for the lizards. And they have different rules, but sort of the same or very similar core models. And so it instantly gives a bit more diversity in the rules and in the gameplay. But also it's interesting to see the same models painted very differently. And it actually means there are different units in the game. I found that pretty cool.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, fantastic. Super. So, guys, should we talk a little bit? So, if the dear listener is interested in getting into this, should we talk a little bit about what we think the best way of getting into it is? Bear in mind, we've got the discount code, dear listener.
Yeah, I mean, the army starter is, I think it's about 500 points. And so it's already enough to play, you would say, the equivalent to an ambush game at 750, right? Like it's slightly smaller than maybe a full game, but it's already an interesting game where you can see how the rules work, and it gives you a manageable starting point.
And that's £45, dear listener, plus the rules. So you're talking under £50 to play,
right?
Which is crazy cheap.
Was it 45? Something like this. Like it's really.
Yeah. It's £45, yeah.
And it's a decent amount of miniatures, right? At the same time, it's 10 mil, so they don't take too much space, and they're pretty easy and quick to paint. So I think, as I said earlier, for me, it's very much, I have a shoebox somewhere with all of my Argatoria stuff, and that's it. Anytime I want a bit of a diversion, I can just take it out. Obviously, I got 2 starters, 3 starters with the sales going on. So I will have 2 small factions to be able to do a demo with friends and so on and so forth. So I think that might be a good way to get started. I think they also have 2-player starter sets. Martin, do you remember about that?
So they don't have at the moment, but they have special bundles and deals on their website. And you have mono-faction deals and bundles, also including the rulebook and the blister of faction heroes. But they also have a 2-player bundle where you have 2 army starters where you can choose the factions. And I think also 1 rulebook included besides the heroes for each faction. So it's a good way to start with a friend.
Yeah, I think that's, that would be always kind of my advice whenever you're interested in a game that is a bit indie and you don't necessarily know someone who plays it. That kind of means you have to be the ambassador for it. And so you kind of need to have 2 demo forces so that you can first teach yourself how to play the game or learn how to play the game with a friend. And so, well, if you already have a friend who's interested, then it's easy. Like you each buy 1 small army starter. And if you haven't convinced someone yet, buy the 2 that you like, and then you can get started. Martin.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's exactly what I will do now with you this Friday to teach you how the game works. And I've also finally 2 forces at my hand. One's Sheolmorg and one are the Galdor. We haven't spoke about them yet, but those are also a human barbarian tribe living in a forest area. It's called Argatoria Forest. I think the name comes from a US rock band, if I'm right. It's quite funny. And they have like a binding with nature and also controls like tree men and wildlife creatures. And they are really cool. So they have druids as heroes, if you like. So there are also different kinds of heroes. We haven't spoken about that also. But anyway, we will look into it maybe a bit ahead. But yeah, so that's Friday. Clement will get crushed by the Dark Forces and the Dark Gods, of course.
Something like that.
It's just another day for you, isn't it, buddy?
For once.
And
I've been playing with Martin pretty regularly, like all sorts of different games. We played Vanguard back in the day, so that's 2-1 in people who love Vanguard on this call today, Chris. Just saying.
I want him to say that in his own words.
Martin, be very careful with what you're about to say.
Oh, we played a lot of Vanguard. That's the only thing I will say about it.
That's not saying you liked it, though. We played a lot. That's, people
like
do a lot of driving to work. It doesn't necessarily mean they like it.
Don't get me wrong. We played it a lot. Also did some play testing some time ago for it. And
still hasn't said he likes it, dear listener. Second chance.
He's smarter than this, Chris.
And now we're changing the conversation. Perfect. And to be honest, I just want to say, dear listener, if you've got any interest at all, just get, for €2, just get the PDF book. It's beautiful. It's full of super cool art and stories, and it's just a really cool thing. So, dear listener, €2, just get the rules, and I think you'll agree this looks awesome. Cool, guys. And let's just talk very quickly, guys, about what's sort of coming down the pipe, because there's loads of stuff going on for the game, right? So we've said already the orcs are probably coming later this year, plus another secret faction which may or may not be dwarves. I'm saying dwarves, by the way. Martin has not said anything to us. And
I say elves, just as a to make a contradiction.
Martin.
And the cool thing about it, if you read through the lore, you might get some hints about the orcs in the rulebook also, so which is quite cool, but I don't want to spoil anything.
I'm losing confidence now because I kind of read it and don't remember anything about that. It's fine. Moving on, dear listener. You get what you pay for. Super. There's also, Spellcrow are putting out official tournament rules, and they're doing FAQs and erratas and all those kinds of things you'd expect. There's going to be new units and models releasing, as you would expect. They're going to have mercenaries, legendary heroes, unique for each faction, which sounds cool. And probably most importantly, there's translations for French and Spanish that are in the works at the moment, which is a really smart move. And maybe this tiny company can maybe have a word with Mantic about doing this and how you get that done. Clem?
Translations, yes, that would be good. But it's always a work in progress, I think.
And it's also a lot of work, so
yes,
maybe there's also that.
And it's ongoing work as well, isn't it? A book, if printed, ongoing support is crucial.
I think Chris will lost you.
It's AR7, and that's 20% off. But there's and just while I think about it, this is quite a random point at this point in the call, but or the podcast. What's interesting is it mentions in the rules, it's a game played without that much terrain, which is kind of an interesting decision, I think. I haven't actually played it or know indeed why that might be, but that sentence kind of stuck out to me. So I wonder why that is. But I suppose we're going to find out, dear listener.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's an interesting experiment in seeing different rule sets that supposedly does a similar thing, like it's fantasy, rank and flank, 10mm game, but it approaches the rules quite differently, I would say. And to me, that is in itself very interesting. And so I'm really curious to see it, to play a game of it. And again, even if I play just a couple of games with it, it'll be a nice project, and it kind of enriches my own experience with tabletop. And when I go back and play Kings of War, I feel like I have more understanding of the overall picture by playing other games. I think it kind of instructs you in a way.
Yeah, sorry, Martin, I'll just jump in quickly. Clem, I think that's a really good point. This isn't the latest edition of a game that's been going for 10 years. This is a game that's been built from the ground up. And, that generally means there's a lot of sort of old school influence on the game, I think, but there's also a lot of kind of modern sensibilities, and it seems very streamlined. So, Kings of War is streamlined too, let's be completely fair, but it's really, really interesting just to see a new approach from games. Martin.
Don't forget, as you mentioned, it's a bit streamlined and modern. It's also have alternating activation system. So it's not like I go, you go, like in Kings of War, which is quite a huge difference. And to be fair, there are terrain rules available, but not within the core rulebook. So the game is still quite new. I think it's about 2 years and a bit more. So it's really new. And they released some terrain rules for it within their own hobby magazine called Purple Warlock. And there are also the rules for the 2 other factions which aren't in the Argatoria rulebook, like Sheelmark and Geldor Barbarians. So you can have a look there and play with some terrain if you like.
Cool, that sounds great. Guys, I think we've touched on everything. Is there anything we need to mention before we wrap up?
Tell me again, Chris, which armies did you get? You remember you got the lizards and some of the barbarians, humans.
Yeah. So I got 2 boxes of the oh God, what are they called? I'm going to struggle. So maybe Martin can help me. The lizards, which are the froggy ones. Yes, the water temple lizards.
That's the Zorgax.
Zorgax, that's it. The Zorgax. And then, let's have another crack. I've already tried to pronounce these. And then I also got the Durandis and the Gaeldor, because quite frankly, Clem, I assumed you'd be getting the evil humans. So I thought,
what a surprise, huh?
Will be.
Yeah.
I can confidently say we'll be covered. Yeah. But I couldn't decide. I was going to pick one of the human factions, but I thought they both looked really cool and they looked different enough. So it's like, why not? Super. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. As you said, Clem, I imagine it's going to be a really fun hobby project. I think you can go really sort of vibrant, fun colours with the models because it's going to look like an episode of He-Man, which is awesome. And then I imagine it's something we get out every couple of months and have a lovely old time. And the rules aren't complicated or challenging enough that you can't do that. I think we'll be perfectly fine to play this every few months. Just play a game of it and not have to stress that there was an errata or the rules are changed or I think we're absolutely fine just to enjoy it on our own terms, which is always very good.
Yeah, I think for me sorry Martin, you want to say something, but just quickly I follow the Spellcrow Facebook page, and because of the way they work with miniatures, they post work in progress of greens, concept art every now and then, and I really like it. Like of all of the groups and companies that I follow, I really think that they have their unique style, and to me it's more like I keep an eye on it and like, this model is pretty cool, like as soon as it's available I'll grab a blister of it, and that's it. It's again kind of a snack, kind of a side project, but it really definitely brings something to the table for me. Martin, you want to say something?
Yeah, and you also can decide if you want to go with just having a taste of a unit, like there are blisters available with 4 bases only, which is the minimum. You have to field for a unit, but you can also go with a full unit, like it's 16 bases, I think, and get that also. And I just wanted to say for the factions for which Clement chose, I think you got Durandis and Sheelmark, so it would be funny how it will play out, because it's normal gods against the dark gods also.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea for me. Like before the Sheelmark were even available, like when they started, I think I liked the Durandis the best, and so I thought they will still be a good antagonist for the Sheelmark, like the baddies, and so that's how I made that choice. But yeah, I think did we even mention that? So it's 10 mil, but it's not exactly individually based, but infantry is based, is it 2 models per 25 square or something?
Yeah, 2 per like square base, yeah. Martin?
Yeah, exactly. It depends a bit of the unit. So there's normal infantry, which is like 2 models on a 20 by 20 square base, which is the old Warhammer Fantasy base size, I think, for normal infantry. Then you have also units with only one model on the 20 by 20 square base, but there are also bigger ones like cavalry, which are on a 25 by 25 square base. And if you can go still bigger with it. And there are also huge monsters like on a 37 by 37 square base and up to 60 by 40, I think. So you have some huge dinosaurs with the lizard man, if you like, and also the mentioned tree men for the Galwa barbarian tribe also. And I think there will be a Hydra for Shiromorg, but it's not yet released, unfortunately.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I like it.
Awesome. Super, guys. Anything before we wrap up the show? I'm assuming silence is a good thing. So, dear listener, the code again was Spellcrow. Their website discount code was AR7 to get 20% off. And that is already on a very good price. Very, very, very reasonable price. So jump on that while you can, dear listener. I think the code's only going to be valid for a week after this podcast drops, right, Martin? So, dear listener, please follow your boots and don't be disappointed. And guys, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a lot of fun to make this quick little podcast about this cool little game.
Yeah, thanks to you. And as always, there's so many universes, so little time, and even worse when we go outside of Mantic. But yeah, I think it's important. I think people already knew that we're not just doing Mantic stuff. Obviously, Mantic stuff is our main thing, and we love it. But it's always interesting, I think, to keep an eye open for what is also available out there. And so I would encourage you guys to be curious. And if you find one model that you like that is not in a game you already play or anything, well, you can just get it and just paint that one. And it's no big deal. Like, it's a hobby, do what you like. And that's the important part. And
yeah, that's right, Clem. Yeah, and obviously, dear listener, if you're not interested in this, next time there's obviously the vast majority of episodes we will be Mantic, of course, for obvious reasons. It's a Mantic podcast, but every now and again we want to do fun little indie things. Just we made our own podcast. I feel like it's fair we make the rules, and if you're not interested, just don't listen. Just wait for the next MUP. With Mantic stuff, Clem.
That's it. And yeah, Martin, it was fun to have you finally on the pod. I feel like you're almost there every month through the questions and so on. And obviously, I see you around when we play games. But it's good to record a quick episode. And till next time.
Clem, have you seen him since you last played Vanguard?
No, because it was last week that we played Vanguard. We still play a lot, Chris. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I was going to say, come on. I know I'm gullible, but I'm not that gullible.
We play Epic Warpath instead.
Yeah, that's true.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Yes. So many universes, so little time. Thanks, guys. Thanks, dear listener.